We did it. We did it. We made it to double digits. This is episode number 10 of this still currently unnamed podcast, but we're just going to go with it, okay? We're just going to keep rolling with it. The name's going to come to us, organically over time, okay? If you've got a good suggestion, you're going to drop it in the comments. And I want to say, because I usually do this at the end, and I want to do it at the top, thank you for being here. Thank you for joining me. If this is the first episode you've ever watched, welcome to your new favorite podcast. Welcome. Thank you for joining me. But if you've been here since the beginning, if you're coming back, then nice to see you, bro. Make yourself comfortable. Make yourself at home. You know? Relax. Because you know what you're in for. These new guys, they're excited. But you know what's coming. You know this thing we got going here. You know the vibe we're trying to create here. Or have been creating, hopefully. So welcome back. Or welcome. This is episode 10. And if you watched the last one, I kind of got in the weeds thinking about how I enjoy making it, but do I enjoy talking about it? Do I enjoy sharing it? Am I good at either of those things? Together, we came to the conclusion that no, I'm not. I don't know what I'm doing. And I think, spent a lot of time talking about how I don't care about analytics and I don't think about that stuff. So to immediately prove myself wrong, I downloaded, you're watching this on YouTube, there's a whole other YouTube app that's for people who put shit on YouTube, right? And I got that app and I've been checking out the analytics, okay? and clearly I've opened something up in myself. All that time I spent last episode talking about how it doesn't matter to me and I don't understand the marketing and it's just about the art and it's art for art's sake. I've got way lost in the weeds, okay? I've been like looking at where are people viewing from, how are they arriving. There's like splits based on age and whatever, all these kind of crazy stats. The craziest one for me is that collectively I'm in the hundreds of views, which is just alone, that sounds crazy. I mean, I know it's not YouTube crazy, but that's for me who, as previously specified, just spend a timeline on this chair and the mic happens to be in front of me. So the fact that we're now at several hundred collective views, and this was the stat that really stood out to me, that we've now passed over a cumulative 24 hours watched. And to think about the fact that not one person, but several people, any people have watched me talk for more than 24 hours consecutively, collectively, accumulatively, is absolutely wild. So yeah, having poo-pooed it all last week, I want to say I'm loving it. Thank you for being here with me on this journey. Episode number 10. Yeah. We'll come up with a name eventually. Don't worry about it. We're working on the production value all the time. There's a bit more editing going on these days. Maybe you've noticed. There's a bit more, sound engineering. No, I'm joking. But maybe over time, some of the podcasts I watch, there's soundboards involved. So that's something that's on my mind. Maybe I'll just do it in post, but eventually that's where I want to get to. The next challenge for me is, working out what to do when I'm not here in this room on this sofa. how am I going to keep it up? But that we'll work all of that out, right? You'll be here with me, or yeah, if this is your first time, I hope you'll be here with me, or you've been here with me since the beginning. Again, you're amazing. You're all amazing. Thank you. So yeah, I've been looking at these analytics. I'm seeing these crazy numbers, and you get obsessed with them because like one performs in such a way, and you get a certain number of views in it, and then the next one, YouTube straight up is like, oh, the latest video that you posted is it's ranked this out of, well, this will be the 10th video, so now I'll do it out of 10. And otherwise it's like out of however many you've done. And so you can see if you're like getting more shit, which is a whole thing. So now there's an impetus to lie down in this chair and like do better than last time. But then I don't know how to objectively analyze what was last time. So yeah, whatever. But what I have noticed is that most of my traffic is coming in from Instagram, which makes sense, because that's where I'm putting it most. But also it really validates because, like, again, with this follow-up to we're doing episode 9 part 2, because this is clearly just a follow-up, responding to myself, because what I said a lot about was not knowing how to market myself. And so the only thing I thought how to do when talking about this is like, oh, well, I want to cut down because who wants to watch a whole 40 minutes, right? Maybe some of you don't make it to the end, which is why I'm trying to front load. Here I'm trying to put myself out there, reach out to you, look into the camera. Hi there. I'm trying to front load this in case, you want to jump off soon. That's fine. That's acceptable. Thank you for making it this far. But I said that I don't know how to market, and so it really validates because the only thing I knew how to do was to cut together a little teaser, because if you don't want to watch the full 40 minutes, maybe I can get across to you that something fun happens in 40 seconds. So that was just a fun little challenge that I set myself, not based on any knowledge, just that was the challenge. 40 minutes, 40 seconds, right? Don't know why. Just went for it, but it's fun, and I'm cutting together like a little teaser, and it's obviously different, it's like portrait instead of landscape, blah blah blah. It's been fun to do. I put those up, and that seems to be where the traffic comes in. So the unfortunate thing is now that, of course, now I've got to learn, not that I know how to play YouTube, because I'm not exactly going viral, but now I've got to learn how to do Instagram as well. And I feel like I've already ragged on Instagram, and I'll continue to. We talked about TikToks, Reels, that kind of stuff, and thinking like what's going on behind the screen there. And I think, yeah, that's in my mind a lot as I'm putting together the trailer. I'm like, just thinking about my own process and what I'm putting into it and what I'm thinking will be the response and whether people respond to it. But certainly it's been nice. I've had people reach out either on Instagram or based on the YouTube, reach out with comments, reach out with things they wanted to say. Most of them just expressing shock. Most of them asking the question I couldn't answer last time, which was, why are you making this and why should I listen? But it's spring. It'll be summer soon. I've got a lot of weddings coming up, and I'm hoping, because of the way Instagram goes out like that it's going to hit somebody who's in like a friend of friends kind of circle. And I'm hoping that when I'm at weddings, I bump into those, like we wouldn't talk to each other normally, right? And we follow each other on Instagram or Facebook or whatever. And I'm hoping for a drunken encounter where somebody comes up to me and they're like, oh, I watched like half an episode and I think you're ill-informed. Like that's what I'm looking forward to as a result of putting it on Instagram. I don't just hope that person comes up and questions me. Well, I hope that person does come up and question me, I don't mind if they don't watch the actual thing on YouTube. It's really fascinating to me, the response that some people have already had, and therefore I can hopefully assume they'll continue to have, to the fact that I am putting myself out there in this way. So yeah, I'm really hoping for some drunken accusations and confrontations based on the Instagram content. But what I was thinking about is it's mostly words. Obviously, it's me talking, and I'm trying to cut it down to the best bits. The highlights, the highlight reel is what I'm trying to put on Instagram as the teaser. Maybe I should put it elsewhere, but whatever. And then I started thinking about, subtitles and captions and whatever, and the problem is that I'm cutting together the sometimes the wordiest parts or the most shocking parts or the sweariest parts. So, I'm typing out these words, or I'm like, trying to caption it. And I'm like, no, I don't want to do this. It's kind of a waste of time. So I haven't done it. And then I feel like I was just flicking through Instagram the other day, and I've been thinking about this a bit, but this reminded me that if I want to put those sweary parts in, norm dictates that I should be like censoring myself, but like in this strange way that Instagram has come round to, which is like, okay, first example comes to mind, segs instead of sex, right? SEGGS, or some variation thereof, instead of saying sex. And I'm really interested in why that is. Like, there's a bunch of other ones. Like, if there's anything, it's like, in like comics and cartoons, when characters swear, often they just like put a bunch of punctuation or whatever, strange other non-verbal symbols, perhaps like asterisks and pound signs and whatever, all in a row, to indicate that they've been swearing. And this is a little bit more yes but not that, because it's not like F ** K, it's more like yeah, sex is really funny. I've seen one that was the word abuse, and similarly, I guess they didn't want to be like whatever. So the censorship of the word abuse was like @ symbol, and then like, umlauts or graphs or whatever over the U and the E. So there's some measure of not typing in these words. And I don't know, having not done it, having not typed in any subtitles or captions on my reels to date, my stories at all, or experienced any form of virality or Instagram fame, I can't fucking work out why people would do that. I just can't get my head around it, because like, who did they think they're fooling? By leaving in like the shape of the word, right? It's still the word. I can tell. Any user using Instagram can tell that you meant sex by sex, right? And also it's the convention of it. So it's not like every time I see it, I see segsy time. Like, it's not like you're changing it up each time. So I think what's really important for me to stress is that if you think that's censoring something, and especially if you're doing that with the aim of sliding under the radar with Instagram itself, like sneaking past an AI automated like censorship or parental guidelines things, it's not going to work. That doesn't make any sense. Because if you use the same word over and over again in place of the bad word, like if we're talking about, I've seen like shit, sh exclamation mark t, right? If you use that over and over and over again, then the AI will recognize that that's a word, and it's absolutely 100% smart enough to put together that that's what you're trying to say. So who are you censoring it from? Because like I don't need it censored, because either like usually, because that's the format, the captions or the whatever is just repeating what's actually being said. So I can hear you say shit, bro. Like if I just turn the volume up, I can hear you say shit. Or if it's a caption over something that's not that, I know what you're saying. It's like, I don't know. It's like when you're spelling a word so that the kids don't know what you're saying. But in this case, they definitely do. Like when kids start to learn to spell and they're like, oh, you're talking about the candy? Because I think I put it together by the DY. I think I got it. Candy is what you're talking about. And you're trying to be sneaky about it. And I can tell that you're spelling something out because that means you're trying to keep it from me. So now I'm extra attentive. And that's a pretty good analogy of how the AI is working. And what kind of amazes me even more than that is that that's how people want it to work. Like we've had some crazy stuff on Instagram over the years, let alone recently. Take COVID as an example. I'm sure the algorithms at YouTube have just gone aflame with red lights now that I've said the C word out loud. Because they can also analyze the sound, and that's really important to remember. But people had this expectation during COVID that misinformation and anything about COVID should be flagged by the algorithm. And so the algorithm was trained, assumedly, on words like COVID, infection, mask, vaccination, things like this, right? And people wanted it to be, people wanted Instagram to step up and do something about misinformation. And so that's why you see these banners and warnings over everything. And like I say, I'm sure now I've said all those words in quick succession. I'm sure I'll get a mark on this as well. But that's what we wanted them to do. We wanted, and in some ways that's right. We should ask a lot of the platforms that we post on to flag this kind of content. But for that same exact reason, what makes you think that changing sex to SEGGS is going to fly you under the radar? You have this thought process clearly that algorithms should be smart enough. Like, if you want an algorithm to be smart enough that someone can write misinformation about masks and write M@SKS, and you want the algorithm to catch that, but you don't think it's going to catch you when you put SH!T, I don't make those two things make sense. You're clearly contradicting yourself, aren't you? And what really is our expectation of the algorithm, of the robots in that scenario? You know, but I feel like that sort of rhymes with our whole confused set of expectations for the algorithm as a whole, like, or, you know, the robot masters that guide our journeys around the internet. Like, I see a lot of people, and it's a funny joke, but I see a lot of people make the joke of like, why am I being asked to like identify street signs to get access to whatever, like to log in, right? You're like, oh, please check your whatever. Here's your password. Oh, we want to check if you're a robot. So we're going to get you to see how many buses there are, right? And the joke is, why would we check if we can identify buses, humans, to pass an am I a robot test, when we're also asking robots to drive cars for us. That's funny. I get it. But what you don't understand is, or what you might not appreciate, is that it's the exact opposite. Robots are better at that game than us. You know, when you're looking at the squares and you're like, well, okay, I can see that the motorbike goes between these squares for sure. But this top one, there's like the edge of the handlebar. Is that included or not? And you're dithering and you're wondering and you're choosing and you're deciding whether to select that extra square or not. Like there's buses. There's a bunch of buses and you're like, there's definitely a fucking bus. But then there's a minibus and you're like, well, is a minibus a bus? Like, you know, you're asking yourself these philosophical questions and you're wasting time. The robot does it in such a little amount of time. So quickly that's how you are identified as not a robot, because you're slower than a robot. Not because you can better identify things. You take longer to identify things. You go click, click, maybe this, click, move the mouse, verify. Robots go do. And that's the frame of mind that we should be bringing to this. And again, like, we entertain that idea when it comes to what we request of the algorithm. Like, we had an expectation during COVID that everything bad would get filtered out and Instagram would protect our feeble minds from the things that were untrue and be able to somehow look through the information, verify its source, verify its truth, and only serve us the good stuff. And we also have an expectation that, like, I don't know, people can't post horrific stuff and it immediately goes viral, right? Like, there's countless stories of like the Facebook Live stuff, people being killed live, and that we have an expectation, and it comes from a good place, that expectation, that shouldn't be visible, that the rest of us shouldn't see that, right? So that's why it kind of confuses me when people are like, I don't know, maybe I'm misinterpreting this completely, but the impression I get from like Instagram sensations, TikTok viral masters censoring out their own words with euphemisms or emojis, or you see accounts that are basically just adverts for OnlyFans, and then even the OnlyFans itself is like hinted at, and it's just like, how can you expect hate speech and war crimes to be identified and filtered out, but you think that your coy wink wink little scenario as a 14-year-old posting this content is going to make it past those same censors? To me, that doesn't fully follow. But it shows to me that, like, I don't know, people clearly have an idea that's different, very different and varying ideas about what the Instagram and social media various, like, assume that I'm using that name for several names, what it's doing or what it's good for, and people are like, they have an impression that those algorithms will, one, be fooled by a TikToker slightly changing some characters in censorable words, two, shield us from seeing anything horrific, three, serve us up the absolute truth. And I like, but we also don't want to pay any money for it. And we also want to dismantle these giant corporations. And we also think they're doing nothing when we talk about it. So that's really tricky for me to hold all of those things to be true about the same thing. And it's definitely worrying because, There are a huge number of conflicts occurring right now, but there is a particular conflict occurring in Europe and West Asia, I guess. Eastern Europe, Western Asia, that is occurring right now. And we're seeing news about it every single day. And people talk about propaganda. People talk about how, I guess I shouldn't be coy either. People talk about how the Russian people are being fed propaganda. And that's true. Obviously, that's true. That's what the Russian state has been good at for decades, centuries. But it's said with an air of, and we're not. Like, that Western media and the stuff that we see is not propaganda. And maybe it's fair to say that a lot of the stuff we see has more elements of the truth in it. Maybe I could say that. Like, having seen some of what's being broadcast on Russian TV and having seen what some of like Russian influencers are being scripted to say, it's fair to say that they're being a lot of the Russian people are being fed and complete fabrication, and that they don't have access to what's actually going on, and they're being fed a certain narrative, and that narrative is completely false. That's all fair to say, and that is like mostly true, and it happens because Russia works the way it does, where a lot more control is exercised over the internet and over the people that operate on the internet, and the larger internet companies and the telecommunications companies and the TV companies and all that kind of thing. And all of that's true. But if you really believe that there's not some element of that also happening to you, then you haven't learned the lessons of what's been happening, well, basically since social media began. But most obviously acutely in the last few years, especially since the election of a certain president and the results of several elections in the UK. One that led to a conservative government, the other one that led to Brexit, where, we all realize that we live in these kind of bubbles and we hear things from people that sound like us, and we hear views that sound like our own views, and that's what the algorithms are set up to do, because that's the content that we enjoy, and then that's the content that we go on to share, and that's the content that we press like on, and all that kind of stuff. And so it's crazy for people to say in this scenario, oh, Russian people don't know what's up 100% because they're only seeing propaganda, and then not think of what we're seeing also as propaganda. Like, I'm not suggesting for a millisecond that Ukraine is not being invaded, and that this is not a completely unjust military offense by a larger country. However, there are many ways in which we talk about it which are very strange to me and seem to have hallmarks of propaganda and a one-sided narrative. And it's really interesting to me to talk with people now about this conflict and about what's happening and about what they're seeing on their social media feeds, and not accept or acknowledge that propaganda for sure, or rather biasing, has something to do with that. Like, I have never before, I got Instagram when it was about like arty people doing RT pictures. And then it was about food and, all those phases that it's gone through. And now it's just fucking memes, all right? But I scroll and the algorithm now is suggesting me like, this brave Ukrainian soldier took down 5 Russian airplanes from his fighter jet. Why do I know that? Why am I being given that information? Why do I need to know about the kill rate of a Ukrainian soldier? Like I'm reading the news, I see what's happening, and I'm obviously very interested to hear about what's happening to the Ukrainian people and how they are surviving like citizens. But why am I hearing about how many people this soldier has killed? And why am I seeing things being blown up and weapons being taken, and in some cases Russian soldiers being captured or positions overturned? Like, why am I seeing that on a social media app? And to me, that is the clearest sign of like, propaganda is me hearing about a war message in a place that previously wasn't really about that. And I understand that I see many and all things on Instagram, but it's when it creeps into like, I don't know, there's sort of like content aggregate accounts like your Lad Bibles and things like that, when they're like, this Ukrainian family built Molotov cocktails and look at them all now, and they're all standing outside somewhere with their cocktails ready to kill other human beings. Like, I'm not suggesting that that's not their right to fight, but why the fuck am I seeing about it on the same app, dumb app on my phone, that the previous swipe I saw a dog doing something cute, and then the previous swipe I saw like someone whose hilarious Italian accent means he can't really pronounce English words. Like, that is propaganda. I'm being fed a message about a military conflict softened up by this other stuff. It's information that, frankly, I just shouldn't know about how people are killing other people, defending their territory, sure. Fighting a just fight, I get it. But I shouldn't know this. And people are losing their lives. Russians are also losing their lives. And I feel like for some people, even me saying that, it's going to be like, oh yeah, well, they know what they signed up for. No, they didn't. Everybody who is dying in this conflict is having a bad time, and their families are having a bad time. And the people who are above them are the ones moving the pieces. And what I'm trying to suggest is, in the same way that one of those people is letting his people know that the war is going this way, I think it's crazy to assume that we're also not seeing a version of the war that is not 100% the truth, because that's impossible. But also, like, we are seeing more than we asked for. So we have to ask, well, why are we seeing this? And what are we seeing it for? And why is it that we are seeing that? And I think, that's an obvious and very massive and extremely thorny subject that, again, like, I already regret having waded into, but I said it. So, take me off YouTube, please. I'm sure this is already flagged a million times over this video for all the real, buzzword content that I've brought up so far. So let me add one more to the file. I feel like the weirdest thing that I'm seeing at the moment, in the midst of this horrific and awful conflict that's occurring, there's another apparently more entertaining conflict that's occurring which is a lawsuit between two Hollywood fucking celebrities. Again, we don't know the truth. It sounds like they're both horrific people. It sounds like they both done horrible things to each other. And it sounds like everybody's got a fucking opinion and no one really knows everything. But what I'm finding really strange is that one of those actors was in a particularly famous film franchise called Pirates of the Caribbean. And I feel like I watched the first two, and then they just kept fucking making them. They just kept churning them out. And I haven't thought about them since. Like, I guess they were fun movies, the first couple, right? Orlando Bloom and Keira Knightley and Johnny Depp. Having a good time. Being pirates, being drunk. Escapades. It's all good. But they just kept making them. As far as I'm aware, there's like 16 of them. Who fucking knows? But like, certainly I haven't watched them in a while. I don't know who continued watching them. But I don't know if they're still making them. But I know that they continued making them after I stopped watching. But what I've never thought about is those films in a sad or nostalgic or misty-eyed kind of way. And what I'm seeing now is a splicing together of courtroom footage and then shots of this dumb pirate character from these dumb franchised blockbuster movies, like spliced together over sad music, nostalgic, misty-eyed, very just like, hey, remember this beloved character? Remember this beautiful moment in cinematic history? Remember the impact he had on your life? And all I can think about is, this is propaganda. Someone on Johnny Depp's team is working overtime to fill my Instagram with a message that Jack Sparrow was an important part of my childhood. And maybe he, the actor who portrayed this beloved pirate, is a good bloke after all. I don't think that's really people doing that. I think that's somebody on a PR team. I think that's somebody being paid a lot of money to do that. And it's seeping into this public consciousness as people already have too many opinions about this case that has nothing to do with them. And now I'm seeing all of this nonsense and these strange vignettes and supercuts. And that's the same flavor. It's the same thing. It's propaganda. And it's on Instagram. And that's what I think the problem is.